It's like the most stressful part is to actually like go live and just be there on time. But I think
I
we're
think
doing
try releasing
there.
before going live. Oh,
No. Well, the release is building, so that's good.
yeah, that's good.
All right. Are we all ready?
Ready, set.
Yep.
Boom, boom, boom. Let me see. Fly in.
Wow.
That's so beautiful. It's still a
Let's
beautiful
see.
animation. Oh,
Hello. Hello, hello,
Hello.
hello. Welcome. Welcome to the Home Assistant release party for the Home Assistant release 2023.4, which means it is already April and time is flying this year. It's kind of wild. Today with us, my name is Paulus Schoutse. I'm the founder of Home Assistant. Frank.
hi, I'm Frank. I'm working on a home system project and doing the releases and release notes.
Hi, I'm Bram, and I mainly work on the front end of Home Assistant.
Hey, I'm Nick. I usually work on performance and reliability.
Nice.
That's a good tagline you have there now. Nick.
It
It's
is.
pretty much settled nowadays, I guess.
There's always more.
Yeah, that's true. That's
Okay,
true.
so we have a great release. It's already building, so I don't think it's finished yet. That's okay. While this live stream is going on, the releases will become available. You can hit update as always from your UI. Great. Today we're going to talk about the release. We're also gonna I don't know, what are we going to talk about for the rest? I don't know.
Are we
see
going to
as-
spoil a bit?
No, well, that's actually a good point. We are going to have this whole month, we're doing a ton of cool releases. We're going to have some operating stuff / supervisor stuff coming out that's really cool. But the big thing is going to be April 27, Year of the Voice, Chapter 2. So if you've missed it, we are doing Year of the Voice with Home Assistant. We're trying to build allow anyone in the world to control their home using the voice in their own language. Pretty ambitious, but we're also within reach, I feel. We had chapter 1, we did in January. It allowed people to control their home in their own language using just text. Chapter 2 is going to be the next level. We're going to look at speech to text, text to speech, and see how we can build that out. So it's going to be super exciting. We've got some really cool tricks up on our sleeve, which we're not going to reveal just yet. Just tune in on April 27 on this channel on YouTube. If you're not watching on YouTube, find us on YouTube. That's where we're going to be hosting it. So much for the announcements, I guess. All right, the release.
That was quick, actually. Yeah.
Well, no, is there anything
good.
else? Am I missing anything?
No, I don't know. Like I know what's coming a bit. Like I've seen some stuff. I know it's exciting. So definitely tune in
A
the
lot is
27th.
coming. It's
A lot is coming this month. Yeah, it's insane. So this release is just I don't know. Is it? Yeah, it's still interesting. It's still cool. It's still cool.
Yes. All right, so let's kick it off. What's
Yeah.
the release? Who's going to share the release notes?
I will open up
Okay.
the screen here. Let me get them.
Do you hear traffic from my
Yeah, a bit.
surrounding or not?
Yes, a
It's
bit.
just me.
Oh, I bet
No.
my crisp is filtering out your noise.
That's possible, right? Crisp is cool. Cool tech.
Yeah.
Do you have it on now, Paulus?
I have it on, yeah.
Can you clap your hands just for the idea? That's just-
Whoa,
that's amazing.
insane.
Yeah. No, I love the
saying?
demo where I just hold the drill next to the microphone and it just does not it does not come through.
Somebody's saying I'm a bit louder, so I'm going to.
Okay.
All right. This release, April, and Easter weekend is coming up, right? So
Yes.
you got something to play with this long weekend, I hope. Here we go.
Wait, you go too fast. Let's look at the
Oh!
picture with all the.
Look at this picture with all the new what?
This is honestly so on this picture. Normally, this is the social picture, the banner picture of the blog post. we always include all the new integrations. And I think this is the first release in like a very long time that there's 0. So I guess that means that we have integrated the whole internet. Like the whole Internet of Things is done. So
No. So yeah, it happened. Like I was making the release notes. We were cutting the beta, and I was like, "Wait, how did this happen?" Like, whatever. It happened, and that's okay, I guess. There's a lot of cool stuff in this release, and what's coming up is even cooler.
it is gonna be
Next
very
of this month, right? So there's a lot of time went into those things, and maybe next release. All right.
cool.
Somebody's asking if there are Easter eggs in this release. That is a good idea, though. I haven't looked at it. But let's go. All right. We can watch yourself.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, would have. All right. First up, it's more front end in this case, which is the new dialogues. Just like last release, we added a bunch of new entity dialogues. In this release, many more have been added. You want to take this up, Bram?
Yeah, sure. Last release we did light switches and sirens. So and yeah, we kept the flow going. So we went with the same designs, but now for new domains. So the first is covers, and covers is a difficult one as we have a lot of different kind of covers in Home Assistant. We have doors, we have windows, we have shades, we have everything. So yeah, we ended up with some different controls based on the device you have and what it supports. So you can control how far it opens, and if it supports tilt, then with the second slider on the first image, you can control the tilt of your covers. And the second example is a cover that can only open and close, so it has a toggle, just a switch. And then you can also, in the first one, there's a button underneath, and if you click that, the controls switch to buttons, just like the last example that only has open, close, and stop.
Let me show that, because I got it right here.
Nice.
Right? So this is not a real entity, by the way, so I'm not sure what it does if I pull it. I used to make screenshots, so it's not real. But like this is the button here.
Yeah, so
Then you
now
get the controls.
just buttons. And you can just say open, and when you think it's open enough, you press stop or not.
I really like the fact that these are like the tilt of the blinds.
Yeah.
It's a demo entity doing weird stuff already. But this is cool. But this is like how much the blinds are open and closed. That's cool.
Yeah. The
Love
the
it.
tilt is it like you can, yeah. So the first one is like up and down, and the second one is tilting.
I like the detail. Like if you go to a light, then the slider will go from bottom to top, right? And in this case, like a blind,
Yeah.
it goes from top to bottom. I think that's a little nice detail.
Yeah,
Love
definitely, definitely. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, I think that the progress we're making on the more info dialogues, like this is of course we started this last release, and now we're continuing, and it's just like we're gonna be able to move faster and faster because now we have these controls for like remote switches, icons, like different background for sliders, and so it's gonna get better and faster. It's looking gorgeous.
Yeah, definitely. It's so
That
nice
looks-
to control them on mobile, and it's just beautiful, I think, personally.
Yeah, totally agree. Right. Else- okay, because there's more dialogues done in
We
this
have
case.
more than just cover. Yeah, next up was fans. So for fans, there's also different kinds of fans, different possibilities. So we also ended up with different kind of controls. So you have fans that you can just set the fan speed to whatever between 0 and 100, and you have fans that only have like 3 steps, like medium, high, low. And in the old UI, we also always displayed them as a slider,
Yeah.
and it would be kind of weird if there were only 3 settings, that it would be a slider. So if your fan has less than 4 modes, I think, 3, yeah,
4.
4 modes, then we display it as the first image. So there's just a slider kind of button thingy. How do you describe something like that? So it's just buttons. You can set it to medium, high, low, or off. And then the last one is when you have more than 4 options.
Yeah, this has
And-
been. Oh, sorry.
And then there's the only on-off presets mode, and you can set the swiftful modes and all the other things.
Yeah, I feel like we've had a very, I don't know, rough relationship with fans. Like we initially had like these preset modes, but they didn't map to everything. Then we turned everything into percentages, and people don't always understand that. Like in Home Assistant, we try to offer a single UI for your fans, regardless of how the fan actually works. But of course, if your fan has 3 presets or 4 presets, and we turn it into percentages, now it's like 25% is like low instead of like low. So now we're kind of, you know, we still haven't decided what we like the most ourselves. So we now are turning it back also into high, medium, low if possible, if we still know that those presets exist. But yeah, it's tricky. And that's just, you know, it's not something we can really do anything about because there's just so many different fans. And like there's no standard. Like lights are easy. Brightness is like a, percentage or whatever. But
Yeah.
speed of fans, there's no max speed, right? Like especially because there's different sizes of fans and whatnot.
Yeah,
This
so
is the actual
one
fan,
that has
like-
only 2.
Yeah, this is an actual fan. This is an ESP Home fan I created. So actually playing with my attic ventilation now, but kind of nice that I now have not just the on-off and the slider, but just 3 buttons. Actually, I like that. Like previously, I would have a slider and the on-off.
Yeah,
Pretty neat.
definitely.
Cool.
And then we have more.
We have more.
We have more.
This one, I liked it. I know this one is just, this is my all-time favorite point.
Oh, it has some nice animation.
Yeah, let me just.
So you spilled all the beans.
Oh, that's the wrong tab. Let me get it. Let me get it here. The alarm control panel.
Yeah, the alarm control panel just got way more clean. Like it used to have all these buttons for code input and a drop down for the mode, I think. And I
Mhm.
don't even remember how it all looked, but it looked.
It
crowded.
looked like still have the old card.
Yeah, we have the Lovelace card is not changed. Yeah, you can use the tile card if you like this, by the way. Because that
Frank, can you
one-
increase the height of your browser window?
Okay.
just a little bit more. Just a little bit more.
Just a little bit.
Yeah, well, the problem with this thing is this is not a real entity, so this exposes everything.
Right. But yeah.
I cannot control my real alarm. I'm sitting next to a sensor, right? That will not work. It will be really fun on stream, but I could zoom out a little.
Yeah, this is better.
But the
So,
cool thing, go ahead.
Yeah,
Sorry.
the cool thing.
Yeah, I find it really cool because previously you had a numpad, right? Because like if you arm and disarm the alarm, you have, at least I have to put in code. And so the more info dialog previously was basically a very old school numpad to look at. And I love how it has been solved here.
Yeah. So you recognize this control from the fan stuff, and usually alarms have less options than this. I hope, because it looks better when there's an option less. But it works with these options too. And the cool thing is, if you click one, then at that moment it will ask you for the alarm code instead of just showing it always. So that's
Don't tell the
pretty
code to anybody.
nice.
Super secret.
And then it has some pretty sweet animations.
If I arm it, because that's where the animation is.
Is this your real one?
No, it's not.
No. Yeah. And then it has some sweet animations that it's arming and you should get the hell out of your house. And then it's green away. So yeah, it's
Awesome.
pretty cool. Yeah, definitely.
Somebody's saying, fingers crossed that the Verisure integration wakes up again with this update. Yes, it does. By the way, I'm using it, and so yeah. What you-
The build is done. Somebody just wrote.
Almost.
Okay.
The Docker build. If you're running Home Assistant operating system, then the build is done.
By the way, to prevent a lot of issues and stuff, please update your custom cards before you update Home Assistant.
Good.
There have been a lot of updates in the back side of the front end. The back side of the front end, yeah. You don't see it, but it's not visible, the changes, but there's a lot of technical changes that a lot of custom cards that don't follow or recommended supported APIs that did hacky things no longer worked. So most of them, I think, have been updated during the beta and should now work with the newest version. So make sure you update your custom cards.
Seen a
Can you,
lot of updates.
Can you explain why we made these changes? Because I think that, we're not changing things to break custom cards.
No, we're not changing things to break custom cards, and a lot of people might think hey, nothing changed visibly, I don't see any changes. Why did you change anything at all? So the main reason was we've been using Polymer for forever. We started with Polymer with the front end. Paulus had a nice side project, thought, hey, I want to try out Polymer, let's build a front end.
Back in the days.
Back in the days. But Polymer is no longer supported. They went with a new project called Lit. And Lit is way faster, lighter, way smaller. It's closer to the native functions of a browser, of JavaScript. So we've been working over the last years to migrate our entire front end from Polymer to Lit, which is a lot of work. And it also means our dependencies were also using Polymer, so we also had to update those. And the last piece of Polymer that was still in the main part of Home Assistant that would always be loaded was our sidebar. That was a Polymer element. And we changed that out for a new element, the Lit element. And that means we had to do quite a few changes to keep everything working.
Apparently, there were a lot of custom cards doing a lot of hacky stuff on our sidebar. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think the why did we want to get Polymer out? Why do we want to get Lit in? Is that the new Lit is a lot smaller and it's faster, and basically they took everything they learned from Polymer and put that knowledge into Lit to make it the best possible web framework we could use. And so now that Polymer is out of the main sidebar, the app will actually load faster. So maybe you
Well, not yet, but the next release will.
we started the course. And so once Polymer is fully out of the app from the main thing that we load, then when the app starts up, there's two things happening. We have to build up the UI, which is where Polymer was included, and that building up the UI will be faster. The other part is loading your data. So the UI has to be built up, the data has to be loaded, and then together we build up the second part of the UI, which is like your dashboard. And so all of that can start moving faster if the UI was the bottleneck. And we see that a lot of slower devices, especially, the UI building up, parsing the JavaScript was the bottleneck. So definitely slower devices, like, budget phones, these kind of things, they will have the most benefit of this,
Yeah.
which will be great.
Just like somebody said, the build is now being fully shipped.
Whoop, whoop. Update all the things.
Oh yeah.
All
All right. Next up,
Next up.
like Twitch.
Hello, Paul. Paul has been the driving
Oh, Paul's in
force
the
behind
chat.
all these beautiful more infos, the coding part.
Yeah.
Definitely. Thank you,
That's
Paul.
annoying, right? That like we pop out a comment, it's right over Nick's head.
Yeah, sorry, Nick. All right. Scrolling. New tile card features.
Yeah.
This is,
so these beautiful controls we now have for more infos.
No, yeah,
The-
let's take a step back. Well, because like we've been like behind the scenes, and it's like, well, it's not really in the secret, but we've been working on a new card for the dashboard, and it's called the tile card. It's built by Paul. Paul works for Nabukasa, but he's also he's mainly known for creating mushroom cards, and the style that mushroom cards kind of exhibits, that's something that we've been bringing into Home Assistant as well. And we call this the tile card. Now, tile cards have actually not just represent an entity, but they have a thing called features. And a feature is what actually sits below the name of an entity and its state. So in this case, Frank just added like an attic ventilation entity. Is this like in a panel, Frank? Or
Yeah, it's a.
I'm not sure what am I in a panel? I am.
Yeah, you need to
That's-
change the mode of your.
yeah, so
That's better.
the idea of tile cards is that instead of having like a card with multiple entities, you have smaller cards, but they only represent a single entity. In this case, there's the attic ventilation. Tapping on the icon will turn on or off the entity. Tapping on the name will open the more info dialog. And to make these cards contain more things that are usable for you to like interact with the entity without opening the more info dialog, there's this thing called features. And the feature is a widget underneath. It can be a custom card, actually, there can be custom features, but generally what we are offering right now are things like the light brightness for light, so you can actually have a slider. And for the fan, as Bram was about to say, and I guess I'm gonna hand it over back to Bram.
So those beautiful controls we've had just shown you in the more info, they also made it into tile cards. So for the fans, for example, we can now add a feature fan speed, and that will do the same as the ones in the more info. So in this case, it has two presets, medium, high, and it will show you 3 buttons. If you add a fan that has more, it will be a slider, like the one for the brightness of the light.
I don't have. Yeah, I do have. By the way.
Yeah, now it's.
Oh,
Hey.
now it's gone. It was fake, so I changed the state. Disappeared. But yeah, the slider will pop up there.
Yeah. And like our long-term goal is, of course, our long-term goal is to actually change the default dashboard strategy to be built based around tile cards and not around the current card system. So it will be a huge overhaul for which we actually have 2 people currently doing UX research, interviewing a lot of our users to see how they're using the dashboard, see what kind of things they prioritize, right? Like we're looking at people opening the app because they want to control something right now in their house? Are people opening the app because they want to get insight into what happened in their house? For example, look at the history, or do they want to see what is the overall temperature control? Is it going well? How is security going? How's energy going? And so this is kind of something we're researching, and then based on the outcome of this research, which we will also publish, of course, we're gonna come up with a new default strategy to kind of guide the user to do the things that they want to do first, to kind of prioritize that and like have it come up in the dashboard. Of course, this is a default strategy, just as like today, you can take control, build out your own stuff. But we're mainly, the research we're doing is to see what should be the defaults and how can we have the best defaults to satisfy the most people.
But this is not all.
It's not.
It's not.
What are you aiming at?
Well, the last one.
Oh yeah, we have the other tile feature. Yes.
Yes, we have another tile feature. Indeed.
Yeah.
So the same thing can be done for alarm modes.
This one has
And
too
it
many.
will give you the same nice keypad.
That's actually pretty. And there's another thing. What I like, the animation is.
Yes.
Yeah.
What I like about this this feature is that it has an additional control, actually, because you can configure which modes you want to have.
Yeah.
Notification is probably not used a lot. Your alarm supports it. Probably, at least I use SARM in this case.
Yeah.
Yeah, excellent.
And then it's better usable as a smaller card. Because tile cards are not really meant to be big.
I'm zoomed in a lot, of course, for the stream right now, so
Yeah.
they're bigger than usual.
Bigger cards always better.
Better.
Better there.
No, I mean that's another thing when we're doing dashboard research is that like yeah, people have wall panels, people use it on their phone, people use it on their computer, right? And every angle has a different use case that kind of like bubbles up that people prioritize. And of course, soon there's voice. Nobody will see the dashboards again.
Let's hope. Let's hope so. All right. Tile cards. That's it.
Yeah. Go check it out. They're already in your current Home Assistant. You can start playing with it. And if you're a custom card developer, try out building custom features because that's going to be really cool.
Yeah, that's cool, right? You can just add those. I haven't seen any yet.
I don't think I've seen any either. What I did see, by the way, is I saw somebody shared a custom strategy, a dashboard strategy for Mushroom on Reddit.
Oh,
Should have, like, what? I didn't like. I don't have the link.
strategy has been there for 2 years.
Yes. I tried to quickly search mushroom guide, but it talks about magic mushrooms. So I don't have the link ready, but we have this feature in Home Assistant called Strategy, which is really cool. It is basically how you can automatically, what we use for our default dashboard, it's called a strategy. It takes in all the user's data and based on that generates a way to like how should your cards be laid out. And what somebody did is he created a custom strategy for mushroom cards. So it means that it takes all your input and generates a dashboard around Mushroom for you automatically without having you to click on things and like configure it yourself, keep it up to date. It's really cool. And strategies have been available for 2 years, but nobody has really, the custom card community hasn't really picked it up yet. So seeing this one was really exciting because I was like, yes, now there's like a good example people can start copy pasting from.
Yeah, there's your battery strategy, right?
Yeah, I know.
All right. The battery strategy. The energy dashboard, that's a strategy too, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
energy
sort of.
dashboard is a strategy, but a different. Yeah,
Yeah.
it also has config and stuff.
Bit. Actually, yeah, I get it. Oh, yeah. I'm loving this new feature, by the way. I was looking forward to this one. Macros for your templates this release. So, if you are like a more advanced user of Home Assistant or like building out template entities or making terrible advanced automations or something like that, then you probably will be using templates. And you will end up doing some things over and over again. Because as of this release, you can actually make custom template reusable kind of functions bit, which is called macros. Which are really cool.
I mean, this is gonna like, I feel like level up the template stuff a lot.
Yes. Definitely. So you can basically think of it as building your own YAML function. No, not YAML, Jinja function, right? So you can create like a file where you put in your Jinja snippet, your template snippet, give it a name, and then recall it anywhere you are in Home Assistant, like in automation or a template entity or in a notification or whatever accepts templates, which I think is really cool. This feature has been contributed by
The poll.
Mr. The Poll, right?
Yeah.
Scrolling the Poll. So thank you very much for that. I think it's really cool. And
Is
this
it-
little go ahead.
No, yeah, I just want about his contribution is that this kind of feature has been contributed in the past multiple times, and the reason we
Yeah.
always rejected it is because Jinja by default, when you do imports, it will load them from disk when you use them. However,
Yeah.
that makes our template system very slow because it's constantly loading from disk from within the event loop, stalling all of Home Assistant. So we had to find a way to like come around this, and the Paul figured out there's actually a dictionary loader, which basically what it means is that we're loading all your Jinja extensions ahead of time when Home Assistant starts up. The moment you start rendering a template, it's already there. So yeah, he figured it out, and that's why we've been able to unlock this now.
Yeah, that's really cool. And what's done in this example is that we have now a custom templates folder, which you have to create if it doesn't exist yet. Like it doesn't automatically appear. But if you create a custom templates folder, you can put in there your .jinja files. And in those files, you can put in your macros. In this case, I have a little macro created, which is called answer question. And you can give it an entity ID. And what it does, it will print is the name of the entity ID on question mark. We'll check if the state is on and say yes or no. That's what this macro does. So it's a little function that can answer the question, ask the question and answer the question of an entity ID that's on or not. So given this file stored in tools.jinja in my custom templates folder, I can now, anywhere in Home Assistant that accepts templates, I can say from tools.jinja, which I created here, import the answer questions macro and then use it. Answer question macro with light.kitchen, which will say, is the kitchen light on? So this is really powerful to use in basically anything you do. Like I've seen some large macros already during the beta for calculating relative time from time to text in human format in different languages and such. Really cool stuff to see. So I'm really looking forward for the little macro and functions you guys will create and share across the community. I think that will be really helpful for
So-
power users.
Talking about sharing, I've heard a rumor. It's not
A
been,
rumor.
it's not a rumor, but like Hax is going to get support, or Ludius is looking into adding support for macros. So what it means is
Oh,
that
wow.
say somebody has a macro, a Jinja template for a specific language to do a specific thing or to do a specific formatting. Maybe you want to have like an offset or anything, basically anything you can think of. People will be able to create these files and easily distribute and share them through Hax. Hax keeps them up to date for you. You get updates, you get fixes. So all the things you expect from Hax doing for custom integrations, it will be able to do for these kind of files. So it will be really exciting.
Cool. I'm just asking, what are you using this macros for? Like, anything. Like,
Yeah, I think it's sometimes hard because these are such generic tools. You're like, what do you do it for? But for example, say you wanna get a group of lights in an area, and you don't just, but it's not all the lights, right? So let's say in the living room, you have some lights that you don't want to target, where you target all the lights in the living room. So now you can just make a macro that returns only the lights that you want to target for the living room, instead of having to filter that out and like reject certain ones. So you can actually also just use it as global variables, right? Because in the end, it's just you get data back. So
I've seen a little macro that counted the number of lights on in a certain area. So it took the area as a parameter. So you had a little macro that could just deploy anywhere that tells like there are X lights on this area. Give it like kitchen. It's really useful.
Petro has a good example. It's like the translations. I think that we're doing more and more translations, but we're not there yet.
Nope.
The translations are not available in the templates, right? They are available in the front end, loaded on demand. So this is going to be great because you can have one file for translations, even translating exactly how you want it, and just reuse it everywhere.
And the beautiful thing is, if you want to change something, then you only have to change it in one place instead of all places. Copy the stuff,
Exactly.
which is pretty neat. So, reusable templates. Thank you to Paul, because I think this is truly amazing. Right.
So one question here from Mihai. Should we create one file per macro? Can we have macros that generate all the macros? I think it's the latter, right? You can have as many macros inside one Jinja file, and because when you import it, maybe you can scroll a little bit up in your release notes. You're actually naming, a bit down. I want to see where you're using it. You're actually saying what thing you want to import from that file. So you can do as much as you want, which is also, I think, where Hex is going to shine, right? You're going to get a toolkit of temperature related stuff, for example.
Yeah, you can just create one file with all your notification related macros in it, and then another one with all your special conversion things in it, and maybe one that delivers and selects all entities that you different. So you can go nuts all the time for it to do it during the Easter weekend. So,
yes.
But there's more templating this release. We went into our list of open PRs and built as much template stuff in here as possible to make many template changes this release for you, of course. So this is a little change that if you use relative time or today add in your template entities, they will now update the state.
This is I think is mainly important for like the front end. In the front end, when you use a template card, you can actually in a markdown card, you can use template functionality, and it will render that template and show it in markdown. And if you refer to a state, the front end, the card will automatically update whenever the state changes. However, this was not happening when you were using a time function like relative time or today add. So if you were using those functions, your card would only render the first time you would open your front end, not afterwards. So with this new behavior, you can use a markdown card in your dashboards with the relative time today add function, and it will update every minute. Yeah, which means it's always up to date.
Yep. Then a new method here, new function is hidden entity, which can be used as a function or a test and takes an entity ID and will tell you if the entity is marked as hidden, yes or no. So for every entity in Home Assistant, you can go into the UI and mark it as hidden. Like if you go into the advanced section and expand it, then there's a way to disable an entity, enable an entity, or the middle one, which is hide. And if it's hidden, it will not be shown on auto-generated dashboards. It will not go into, it will not be shown into Alexa or, I'm sorry, I should not say the name of that one, but the Amazon Assistant thingy, and Google and HomeKit and all other places. And it's cool. You can now filter those. So you can use this as a filter if you're, for example, in this example here, filter your areas, in this case your kitchen areas, and get all the entities from the kitchen, and then reject all the entities that are hidden. Pretty neat to make your targets more dynamically, I would say. Also contributed by the poll. Again, thank you.
He was on fire.
He was on fire. We didn't even merge all of his stuff yet. He had some more upcoming. Then this one, which just amazed me that we didn't have it yet. I don't know why. But there's now a function to get all areas you have, which is called areas. Plain that simple. Thank you, Rokram. Then another one from the poll. He enabled a Jinja extension for us that now allows you to break and continue for loops. So if you're a bit into programming, you can now short circuit those, and that's a little bit more efficient in your templates.
Yeah, I don't think many people will use this because nobody's going to think that they can do this in a templating language.
Mm-hmm.
And I think B, most people don't even realize like why you would do it. So, but it's fine. Home Assistant runs a little
faster. It's better.
If you if you early break out,
Continue can be helpful for skipping things, though. Like instead of wrapping the whole block in if statement, you could easily skip parts of it. So it could make your templates more readable if you're doing a lot of for loops. All right, then we have another little function here, which is called hasValue. Similar functions have been requested a lot in the past. And what this thing does, it tells you if an entity has like a somewhat same value. So if it's available and not unknown, then it will have a value, apparently. This can be useful for rejecting or skipping sensors that are currently not available or have an unknown value. In this example here, there's a train sensor. If the train sensor has a value, then apparently we know the departure time. So then we can say the train leaves at the departure time. Or if you use it as a filter, you could like reject all the entities in your living room that currently do not have a value.
yeah.
And you can list them all. Like this will list all the entities that currently are not available or unknown. There's something wrong, maybe, things like that.
I thought you had an error in that thing, but that's the intention. Okay.
Yes.
I thought you wanted.
No,
to
yeah, but like
ones that were not.
Yeah, in this case, it can show you the things that are missing. You could use it either way. You could change reject. Yeah. You could change it to select, and then you would reject and select, and then you would get all the ones that are available for targeting. All right. I think it's time to call Nick on stage.
Boom, boom,
Database.
boom.
So before I go into database, though, so if you had more than 512 entities in your system and you were using a lot of templates that access states, it would start to get really slow on previous versions, but we've fixed that in this version. So you can now scale to as many entities as you have in the system, and they shouldn't get slow anymore. But
Nice.
database scalability. So, so it's smaller, and every version for the last couple, I guess 2 years is really, we've worked on shrinking the database a little bit more, and finally this is the I think mostly the final form of where we're at for the database. So less disk space usage and less disk I/O. When I first started using Home Assistant, I had a couple SD cards that didn't make it through the Raspberry Pi that I was running it on. So wanted to make sure that never happened again. And this is kind of the culmination of all that. So this release is a huge step forward in reducing the amount of disk I/O and thus the amount of writes on your SD card. I think most people have moved on from that type of configuration, but if you're still using that trusty Raspberry Pi with a SD card, this release is definitely for you guys. It's gonna improve that lifetime of that SD card. And not only that, it's all your database queries are going to come back faster. Your history graphs will respond faster. Your logbook's going to respond faster. And we've done a lot of work to reduce the startup time as well. So when the database is loaded initially, when the system starts up, it's got to figure out mapping all the state attributes and all the event IDs to where they are on the database. So we're able to load that data much faster and the startup much faster. So pretty much every place the database is in use, you're just going to have a much better experience. And we've also got a feature out of it, which everybody's been waiting for a long time, I think, is when you rename an entity, previously you would lose all the history because it would be attached to the old entity ID. So now when you rename an entity, we'll update the database and you'll be able to see all the history for the new entity ID, and your graphs will keep working. So if you're been waiting to rename entities, this is the release to do it. So with those changes, we updated the data science portal and the SQL integration examples. So take a look; they're linked on the release notes. If you do kind of custom queries with the SQL integration, you'll need to update those to access the new format. And if you are planning on doing some renames, so wait 24 hours, because there's a bit of background data migration happening after you update. The schema update should go relatively quickly. It's pretty simple, but all your old data format has to be kind of reworked. So it'll take some time for the data to get migrated over. So as soon as that finishes, you'll be able to rename everything without worrying about whether you're going to lose the history or not. I think kind of that's the big summary of the database. But yeah.
I was just like, you went over a lot of things very fast. So I think I just want to kind of like recap a little bit and just like mention a few things. One of the last things you said is data science portal. For the people that don't know, we have, Home Assistant is not meant as a closed system. It's meant to be an open system. And so we have documentation on how our database schema is laid out with example queries, how to get this data out, how to use this for your own things. We have a Jupyter add-on that you can use that will has a Python package that automatically connects to your database and automatically helps you get your data, like to run, whatever data science you want to do on it. And yeah, this is a great resource if you want to get started, like, hey, I want to do some, I want to practice my machine learning on my own data, or you just want to graph out some stuff that you've been doing. This is the way to go. So that's the data science portal. It's a very valuable resource. We always make sure we keep it up to date. But actually, I just want to also take another step back because, everything is the changes that Nick has done is that we store the data more efficiently, and by just having less data to move around, which is why everything is so much faster, right? There's just less memory pressure, everything is faster. We do less writes to your SD cards, and while in the past there used to be this trend where a lot of people, heavy users, they would move to use MySQL or MariaDB, and because SQLite was too slow or didn't perform well, that's no longer the case. I think that I had kind of jokingly suggested that we should call this release SQLite is back. And,
Yeah.
and I think that right now, if you are not migrated yet, I think what tended to happen is that people are kind of they're tweaking their Home Assistant system and they want to see what they can improve next. And then one of the things that always ended up on those checklists of people or things to do was migrate your database. And we actually see that please don't do it anymore. I think really only migrate your database if you have a good use case for it. I don't know what exactly, but you want to maybe query it more aggressively or have other systems easily access it. But you don't generally, it is totally fine to just keep it in SQLite.
Yeah, the great thing about it, if it's SQLite and something goes wrong, we're generally able to fix it. Whereas if you're migrated to an external database, you're signing up to be the database administrator. So if something goes wrong with your database, you're going to be trying to figure out what's wrong with it. If something goes wrong with the internal SQLite database, generally we can take care of it. So if you don't want to be the database administrator, then don't migrate away from SQLite. But that's I see a question also in the chat, like, does this affect MariaDB as well, or just SQLite? So yes, the performance will be better on all database platforms because the database storage format is much smaller. So no matter how you're storing it, it's going to get, you're going to see an improvement.
Yeah. So there's two questions I kind of want to highlight. First one is, I switched to a MariaDB. How do I switch back? So before I hand it over to you, Nick, I just want to say that there's been a bunch of migration guides on the internet about how to switch to MariaDB or like to other databases, and they tend to evolve around, let's make a dump of the database and import it into the new database. And that is a very bad advice. And the reason that is a bad advice is that we have specific optimizations and data formats that we use for columns, because not every database is the same. The way they store numbers or floats or datetime formats is slightly different. And so per database, we actually have different kind of field values. So what does that mean is that the names of the columns are the same, the name of the tables are the same, but the actual types are not always the same. So if you import your database from SQLite into MariaDB, you're missing, for example, precision. Some precision was gonna mistake. We've added a lot of checks to actually kind of guard for this and warn you, like, hey, your migration is not going right. So the best way to do a migration right now today is to start up Home Assistant pointing at a new SQLite database, for example, have it create the fields for you, and so they have the right type, and then migrate the data over.
Yeah, so what was happening is people would migrate all their data into MySQL, and the fields would be set to the wrong precision, and you would lose all the microseconds on all the timestamps. So, and then you would wonder, suddenly your statistics would have, really strange data in it, because it would happen in the same exact timestamp, two different things, which when you try to evaluate a time that is subtracted from another time that's exactly the same, it couldn't figure out, everything happened at the exact same second. I don't understand what's going on, and you get some very strange statistics. So, definitely, create the database ahead of time if you're going to do a migration using Home Assistant. Don't create it using some of the random tools out there that migrate it from SQLite to MariaDB, because I actually haven't seen one that gets it right without ending up with bad data in your database. But if you do, if you have done that, this version also has a test for pretty much all of our really important tables to check them and repair them. So if you, 3 versions ago, you did decide to migrate from SQLite to MariaDB and you didn't get the columns right, we'll try to fix them for you with this version as well.
Great. I have another question I'm going to highlight. It's from Petro. Now we just need the ability to replace an entity in history with another, which is now that we are renaming history alongside with entities, people are realizing that I cannot replace a device and have it inherit the history. This is not completely true. Instead of renaming the old device, if you delete it, you could actually rename the new entity into the old entity name, and it will continue to work. The trick is to not rename the old entity, because the history will be renamed alongside with it.
Yeah, and if you still wanted to rename it after that, once you've assumed all the history that's in the database, then you can just rename it again, and then you get the final name.
Yeah. So I guess these steps could probably be more user friendly, because it's not clear that all these things are happening, but it's difficult where we draw the line, right? Like if you rename an entity in Home Assistant, then we're going to give you a pop-up saying, oh, what about your history? Should this go along with it? Or are you sunsetting this device? Like, it's also tricky, right? That's also not a good thing to do. I think I saw another question. Let me see. No.
So one thing I also want to point out is, anytime we do a schema migration or any type of data migration, make sure you have free disk space. The number one reason we see, database failures during an update is because someone runs out of disk space and doesn't realize it. And that includes temporary space on your database. because there's a lot of setups that have a very small temporary space. The migration happens, it rewrites the schema, and then it doesn't have enough space to store the new schema, so things go wrong. But generally, if you fix the database server's disk and get things into a good state and restart, it should recover. But you've got to make sure you're not running out of disk space.
Yeah. And this comes with the territory, right? Like you wanna run your own database server, then you're responsible, right? With Home Assistant, we always try to offer the default option is where you're not responsible, right? Like we take care of the operating system, we take care of your database. That is just like you can use the UI to upgrade, you make sure there's rollbacks, that it works. If you take certain things away, you like run supervise, you run container, you run your own database server, then we cannot help because we are not in control of these services, and then it's up to you.
So I see a question about how much space should you have for a migration. So someone here has a 90 gigabyte database on a 125 gigabyte disk. That's probably not a good idea. You generally want to have at least twice as much space as the data you're storing for any type of migration. Anytime the database gets optimized or the tables have to get rewritten, it's going to make a copy, do all the work, and then move it back on top of it. So you could at any time, even just during normal operation, have twice as much data as you're actually storing. So you always want to have that free space available to make sure the system can optimize the tables and do everything it needs to do to get things into a good state.
Yeah, that's also because we do it live, right? So we make a copy and let the system work. Then on a copy of the data, we do the migration, and then we move everything to the migrated version, right?
Right. Well, depending on how the database works and which one you're using, it'll maybe just do one table at a time, or maybe it'll do multiple. But you should always have twice as much space as you are storing to account for migrations and for table optimizations.
Nick, how long does this migration take? Like, yeah, I know it depends a bit on release to release, but this is a pretty hefty one, right?
So for my SQLite databases with the default settings, the migration took about 20 minutes. For the MariaDB stuff, it took about 40 minutes for similar size. INNODB is, because it uses row level locks, is a bit slower. The SQLite migrations are always going to go much faster because of the way the database does the locking. But I've seen people with keep days to 2 years. You could be in it for a 12-hour migration at that point. So.
Yeah. Okay. You don't need that for 2 years. Like the default is 10 days, right?
That's also a historical thing. So back in the day, we didn't have the default of Home Assistant is that we throw your history away after 10 days. So you can always see every state change that happened in the last 10 days in your home. We have that. However, we nowadays have statistics, and statistics we will actually, for the last 10 days, we will see per 5 minutes, we store one state, we kind of generate like what's the average, what's the maximum and the min value, and we store those every 5 minutes. And then we also, every hour, we roll those up. So we have the min, max, and the average for that hour. Or if it's like an incremental sensor, like an energy meter, we store the diff. So how much did it grow that hour or those 5 minutes? And we never throw away the hourly averages ever. So you can keep using Home Assistant, keep throwing away data that's older than 10 days, but your statistics, hourly statistics, will always be there.
So this is different from back in the days, right? Like,
yeah,
you used to set it to 100 days or a year or 2 years to keep insight in your history. But due to long-term statistics, that is no longer like related to that setting even. So you can still set it to like 10 days. It will give you detailed history over the last 10 days, like every single event, while your long-term statistics will just keep on growing in an efficient way. So I believe it's not that much, like megabytes a year, I believe, something like that. So you keep access
really
to...
efficient.
It's really efficient, right? So you keep access to all the data you have about your energy usage for years while setting it to 10 days in the recorder state history, um, which is a thing that I think sometimes is still misunderstood by people. So,
Yeah. Well, that's a
yeah,
opportunity for like education.
right. That's what I was trying to do a little bit right now. So somebody is saying just here right now, does long-term statistics expire? Actually, we don't haven't built that, so no, it
No, but it's
just
also not
keeps
really
adding.
necessary. Like if you like let's say you have a sensor that changes every second, right? That means that you have 86,400 changes per day just for this. That's so many entries per day because that's how many seconds there are in a day. If you have 5 of those sensors, this starts to add really up, right? But if we then look at like an hourly long-term statistic is 24 entries per sensor per day. And so yeah, it's just very little data. And so we're just going to keep it forever.
Yeah. So if you still set purge keep days in your configuration, I would say kill it. Or I've set it to 3 days on my case even nowadays. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
So if
that's
you're
fine.
looking for just figure out how large your database is, if you go into repairs and click on the expansion menu and hit system information, you'll be able to get the estimated size of your database there.
Hold on, this is new information for me. I'm
Yeah.
going to share my screen. Where's this?
I'm gonna check it out too.
To repairs?
Yeah.
Go to repairs, yeah. System information and scroll down.
Recorder, 473 megabytes.
230 megabytes. Or 300 megabytes, sorry. 290. 300 megabytes. I'm not even sure if that's large or not, but yeah.
Yeah, and if you want to keep some entities longer than others, there is also a new service or an updated service. If you go to the developer tools, you can use the recorder purge entities service, and you can now specify a time on that. So if you only want to keep certain entities for a long time, there you go. So you can now specify
Oh.
days to keep. So you could say, I want to keep my history for 30 days, but there's a couple entities that are generate tons and tons of state changes. So you could just remove those from the database.
So you could make an
Cool.
automation that just throws away that every night.
Yeah, because the long term is already stored. I mean, we have talked about it in the past that like, shouldn't we just remove all sensor state data from the database? Like, if we just have 5-minute long-term statistics and hourly long-term statistics, who's gonna really be interested in those short-term data, right? Like we're still like the more info dialogue that you see is also based on the long-term statistics and not on the state changes anymore either.
Correct. It's just logbook, I guess.
Logbook doesn't
Although-
show sensor data,
No, that's
No,
true.
logbook shows events.
right?
Right.
So
One
So
thing else also to point out, you actually won't see your disk usage go down until the second Sunday of the month. That's when we have
That's
the
true.
scheduled repack / optimize / vacuum with the database. So that only happens once a month to reduce disk I/O, but you can manually do it with the recorder purge service. You would just do keep a long period and repack the database. So,
right. Yeah,
You
and
need to set the toggles.
repacking just means that like, hey, whenever you delete data in a database, it's actually not deleting the actual data; it's just overriding it with zeros to indicate that the data to make sure the data is gone. And when you repack it, it takes like it just creates a new file with all the zeros removed, and that's like where it gets a lot smaller. I mean, it does some other stuff too, but that's kind of the gist.
Frank, you didn't repack. We need to update those selectors to constants because there was a switch
Oh yeah.
and it was off.
Oh.
That's why we have constants now.
Oh boy.
so yeah,
We
I'm
need to
seeing a
update
couple
that.
people saying they have 60 gigabyte databases. Those are going to take a while to migrate. But the good news is for you guys, the larger your database is, the smaller it will be after the migration. So it's the effect is cumulative on the deduplication. So the more you have, the better it's able to deduplicate it. So while you probably don't need all that history, if you do want to keep a year of history, when the migration finishes, you'll end up with a proportionally smaller database because you get more deduplication with larger amounts of data.
Right. So, Christoph, maybe you can report back once your migration is done. See how this 80 gig
after the second Sunday of the month, or you can do the manual repack.
Yeah.
So
yeah, please let us know.
And set down the purge days. Remove it from your config or set it to 10 days or 3 or whatever you think is necessary to see for short term.
Right. Except for Ash, because he needs to know if that light was off 3 years ago.
Of course you do.
I think that eventually we're going to have some machine learning things that are run trained on your usage data of your house, and maybe that it might be more interesting to see long-term data. But until we do, it's not really relevant to keep it around.
Right. All right. That was a lot of database stuff, Nick. I've seen the PRs, the contributions you made this month. It was crazy amount. Not saying you're crazy, but it was just impressive. It was truly impressive. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
It was
definitely.
great work.
It's been a lot of that stuff has been a long time coming. So it's finally in there now. I think next month we'll probably be able to clean up some of the old schema some more, and there's some cost of storing empty data in the rows we're no longer using, or columns we're no longer using. But we'll get that cleaned up, and that should also help reduce the size a little bit, but not going to make a significant performance difference.
And one question for the people that are currently on MariaDB: is there a possibility in the future are we going to see migrations for it? Not want to pin you down on anything, but just just wondering if that would be maybe. Well,
Maybe.
that's. Maybe it's okay.
I built something. I'm really not happy with it, and maybe I'll move it forward. It can. You dump a line of YAML into your recorder config, and it will. You give it an empty database. It'll copy everything from your old database to your new database, but it's really, really, really slow, and So.
Yeah.
Right, that's understandable.
Slow but correct is good, right? Easy to maintain.
That's true.
But when you say really slow, are you saying 5 minutes, or do you mean 2 days?
Well, if you have a 79 gigabyte database, it might be 5 days. But if you have the default settings, maybe 30 minutes. So.
Yeah, I mean that seems okay, I think. I mean, if you have hoarded 80 gigabytes, you should clean up before you migrate.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
So I see some people reporting a decrease in CPU usage. Yeah, there's not only database changes, but there's also a lot of performance improvements that we kind of haven't mentioned. It would be too hard to enumerate all of them, but if you see your CPU usage go up after the update, that's probably the background migration happening. But wait an hour or two before wait for the migration to finish, and then you'll have a pretty good idea of what the CPU usage improvements actually account to.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of template-related performance tweaks and things like that.
All across the board, actually. Yeah, pretty amazing. Cool.
So I think one question I saw up earlier, people were asking, I restarted Home Assistant while my database migration was ongoing. How strong are they?
So the schema migration, well, when it's doing that part, it won't let you restart, which this was actually a pretty small schema migration. It was really just the contents of the database that takes a while to reformat. It will immediately resume exactly where it left off So you can go restart as many times as you want and not worry about it. If there's a point in the migration where you shouldn't restart, it will prevent you from restarting.
Yeah.
Cool.
And it's assuming you use Home Assistant operating system, or I guess the UI, the Home Assistant UI will not allow you to restart even in container. But yeah, if you're just in your, if you use Home Assistant container, and you're just in your, I don't know, Synology, you're just hitting that button, we cannot stop that.
But realistically, as long as it doesn't like restart at just the wrong point, it'll probably be just fine, and it'll recover and restart from where it was. So
yeah, nice. So
That's
that's a good improvement. And I think Timo also up there, he commented saying he went from 2 to 1.2 gigabytes. So yeah, it's real. Like, I wish we could just have like some stats of like, this is like going to be 50% decrease. But the thing is that everybody's database is slightly different. Not only the how people store the database or configure it, but also how many entities you have and how many state updates each entity has, etc., etc. So,
an ESP home sensor updating every second is probably not like helping you out. Definitely.
yeah, the other thing is the old format, it depended how large the entity ID name was. So if your entity ID was 200 characters, it stored it every single time, and now we only store it once. So it doesn't really matter how long you name your entities anymore. Not that it's really easy to use a long entity ID, but the cost is basically the same no matter what.
So shorten your entity IDs for a cleaner database.
Well, it doesn't matter anymore.
All right.
So before we wrap up,
you're going to save like 4 bytes in your database by doing that. So.
Before we wrap up the database stuff, one last question, Nick. How many test database instances do you have, and like how many times have you tested it?
Hopefully.
Well, first off, I want to thank everybody who has sent me, copies of the database for testing migrations. So like during beta, I got quite a few of them, and even before, just with a lot of users contributed, sample data and test databases. But I think I have a library of probably about 250 different MySQL and Postgres and SQLite test databases to import and make sure all work correctly. So definitely really appreciate everybody who helped out with that.
Nice. Thanks, everybody. All right. What else do we have in this release?
Oh, yeah, we had a release.
Yeah, we got to talk about databases way longer than anyone should talk about databases.
Yeah, well, it is an important, it's a hidden thing, right? If you just hit upgrade, you would have not. Well,
no, but like for me, a database should be something that you only notice when it's not working, right? Like otherwise, it's just there and it does its thing, and you.
That's true. Absolutely true.
Yeah.
Let me jump in back to release notes. And it just popped up directly into the new item. I already scrolled past it. Sorry. So for this release, we have another new thing, which is some new selector capabilities. If you're making blueprints, or calling services, you see that UI where you select or input like select your entities or input like brightness or numbers or text you want to send on your notifications. Those little rows are selectors, and those can be used in, for example, service calls. And it's what makes the blueprints UI. And we've added a new one this release, which is the constant selector, and it really doesn't do that much. You can check it. Yeah, it's
really just for the people creating blueprints, right?
This is really for people creating blueprints. Yeah, exactly. So it's basically a checkbox. If you check it, it will pass in the value. In this case, the value will be true in this example, and it will show enabled in the UI if it's checked. That's all it does. And it's pretty helpful.
So it saves from things that Frank did just now. He checked the thing when he wanted to purchase database, but he forgot
Right.
to toggle the switch. And this is solving that issue. You no longer have to toggle the switch. You only
In this
have to,
case,
yeah.
click, and now I have to turn it on even. Like, that would be weird. It should just be click, I want to repack. That's what it does.
So this one actually needs to be updated.
Cool
like
little
it.
selector. Sorry?
The next selector feature.
Yeah, I think this one is great, but this is also not that visual. But we added the possibility to add, well, we already had the possibility to add a filter to selectors. So if you had a device or entity selector, a Blueprint Curator could filter them by the devices they support. However, in some cases, in this case, like the Philips Hue remote, has different model numbers in Europe and in the US. Yet both are basically the same and work the same in Home Assistant. So previously, those filters wouldn't apply because you could only enter one as a Blueprint Creator. Now we support adding multiple filters to it, so you can filter either remote. So both will show up. I think this is really cool and helpful, by the way. You can add as many as you like, and it can also filter now based on features an entity has. Ram, I believe you mentioned something earlier today.
Yeah, you can filter on supported features. So it's a bit more technical to find out what they're called. You have to look them up in the code to actually see what a feature is called in Home Assistant. But then you can filter entities, devices, areas on if an entity actually supports something. So if you want to have an entity that has to support brightness, for example, for your blueprint, you can filter out all the entities that don't support brightness.
You don't actually have to go into the code. You can actually, in our developer documentation, it is right there.
Yeah, it's listed there. That's true.
Okay.
Just quickly, so you can just see RGB brightness, whatever. You would only put in.
Well, this is not a supported feature, by the way. This is
a
an
color
attribute.
mode.
Oh, there's too many.
This is
But
supported
good
color
try.
modes.
These.
Yeah,
values.
and then you have to prefix this with the domain and the light entity feature, enum name.
Okay, yeah, it's in.
Yeah.
There are examples, by the way, in the documentation of the blueprint selectors in the end user documentation. So that's kind of nice. Bram added it like an hour ago, just before the release, which was kind of nice to complete the documentation part. But I think this for blueprint creators, it is really helpful. And if you're like building custom integrations with custom services, these will apply too. You can use selectors there as well, which is nice that this is now there.
Yeah.
Another thing, this is more like a text thing. There's not much to see, but we added a bunch more places for translations this release, which most notably would be entity names. I think I can show it, by the way.
So this one is really great. I think this has been, we've been working towards this now for like 6 months, adding more small translation features over time. Device name was actually or the has entity name was actually a big one, where the device name was no longer included. But yeah, now being able to translate this, it's going to be awesome.
I can try to show the actual translation. I don't think it's an entity name that I can show, but I can. It will show up in. Hold on, let me just share it and just play with it for a bit. So I'm currently in Dutch right now, and if I pick up my calendar, Home Assistant releases, which is now just normal Dutch text UI, you will see that things like attributes are now neatly translated, including their values. So that's new. And for the same thing that can happen now is that the name of the entity is translated. I don't have an example here, so I cannot show you this right now.
A good example is that, for example, you have a device that measures temperature and humidity, and instead of having it be in English, because that's how the integration is hard coded, it will now say temperature, humidity in your language, which is also reflected in the entity ID, for example. And so where you used to have to add aliases, for example, if you're using voice to interact with certain entities, all of that is now being translated, and it's just gonna work.
Yep. That's what it does, indeed. More translations on more places. And I think that's really great. It shows up everywhere where possible at this point. We'll probably find some more places to still apply this to, but at least the framework is there. One thing to notice is that this is something that every integration has to opt into and like provide like, hey, this can be translated and this part can be translated. So integrations will slowly update. I believe like ballpark, maybe 50 integrations currently have updated to support all the translation things. This will include all helpers and calendar entities and our base entities.
So, Frank, can you go back to your Home Assistant instance and show the Sun?
Yeah.
Because Paul just mentioned in the chat that the Sun device is translated, which also highlights another highlight-worthy feature of this release. We have now the Sun has a device, and so I'm not sure who contributed this. It's in the release notes, but we had a contribution to the Sun is the oldest integration in Home Assistant. Like when I started Home Assistant, it was about turning on the lights when the sun was setting. The Sun integration exists before the sensor integration existed. And so the Sun always had the entity domain like sun.sun. And it had all this information in attributes, next dawn, next dusk. And so what happened is that when people were like, this is all in English, of course. And now, first step was, it was all attributes, very hard to automate with. And now in this release, it's all being made into entities, very easy to work with, but of course in English. So with the entity translations, it will now be in Dutch.
Let me try to change it now.
It's not in Dutch. You should go to French.
The translators are still working on it, so I think also maybe.
Yeah, my main system language is on English, so that's probably the reason. So let me try to save it and then reload it. Let's see if that helps. No, doesn't.
Try French.
These are not translated yet, but maybe Paul says try in French.
Try in French.
And the French are on top of their game when it comes to translations. Well, other things too. But
I might need your help to get it back into.
Tu parles français?
Oui. Nope.
No.
it will come then. To be continued.
I do need to update my instance, by the way, so that might be related.
maybe
Like
it-
I'm not on the latest release yet. Like it was released during the stream. I haven't updated during the stream yet.
Yeah. All right. What is the next?
Bam. Translations and Sun. Sun is, by the way, great.
Yeah.
I love the sun too.
Luckily, it's spring, right? Summer is coming. At least for this part of the earth. Right, if you're in New Zealand, then it's a different story. Other noteworthy changes this release. Well, the biggest ones. You see, well, Reolink is there again with some massive updates for the Reolink cameras and doorbells. It's kind of cool. Bunch of stuff. I don't have it open. What else? Universal Media Player browsing can now browse media. Supervisor integration has now stats entities for CPU usage and memory usage. Previously, people used templates for those, which broke during the updates earlier this month. So they have been now instated as just entities that are provided, which is kind of cool. The Spotify integration now supports podcasts. If you haven't listened to it yet, there's also the Home Assistant podcast you could tune into. They have released an episode today, so you can now play them through Home Assistant if you want to. You can create play Home Assistant episode podcast button if you want to. Kind of neat. Pairing for ESP Home. You know about that one, I guess, Nick. How does that work, actually? Pairing a Bluetooth devices through ESP Home? I don't think Nick picks it up. Nick? How does that work, actually?
Pairing.
Yeah.
So it's just works pairing. So it just establishes an encryption key and exchanges it, and it's not pin pairing. We don't actually have support for that because Bleak doesn't have support for that. But most of the pairing is just just works encryption. So it was previously supported for BlueZ and Mac OS, but now the ESP Home device is supported as well.
Nice.
Okay, cool.
That's
TP Link
if your
Omada.
ESP home
sorry.
device is a Bluetooth proxy.
Sorry, say again.
That's for if your ESP home device is a Bluetooth proxy.
Right. Yeah. So
Yeah.
if you need to make sure that your ESP Home device is flashed with the latest version of ESP Home as well.
So for the people that actually are watching and are like, what is a Bluetooth proxy? Why would I care? We have this ESP Home, of course, is our sister firmware of Home Assistant. It's like our sister software, I have to say. It turns like small microcontrollers for which I have, well, let me see. I have one here. Small microcontrollers like these. They're like $7.50. They come from China. You can turn them into a Bluetooth proxy through like a browser-based installation process that we built, and it will then start to forward all Bluetooth stuff from that this device picks up to your Home Assistant installation. So it can allows you to interact with a lot of different Bluetooth stuff. For example, these like temperature, humidity sensors that are those will be picked up by these things. We've also created a new protocol for makers called BT Home that people can do. I'm not allowed to say what it is yet, but I saw some manufacturers having BT Home powered devices that they're going to sell soon. So those will work out of the box with Home Assistant, really cool. So yeah, Bluetooth proxies.
Where's yours, bro?
Yeah, I also have one, but it's upstairs. I don't have it here.
So
You should have informed me beforehand,
somebody's
and I would have
asking,
taken it down.
why this one? What's so
Yeah.
cool about it? The reason why I like this one, it's called the Atom Lite, M5 Stack Atom Lite. It has the name on it there. What I like about it is that it's cheap, $7.50. It has some extension capabilities, usually enough to like attach a sensor if you want to. For Bluetooth proxy, that wouldn't be necessary. It has USB-C, so you can easily power it. And it comes with a case. You know, a lot of these ESP breadboards that you buy, they are just like a PCB, and it is, you know, then you don't really want to fill your house with like just open bare PCBs that like can easily get damaged. So yeah, these are my favorite go-to if you want to have a Wi-Fi based Bluetooth proxy. We should actually,
I just got mine like this week. I was truly impressed by how small they are. Like,
So one thing
It's
we
really-
probably should mention is the Ethernet ones are definitely much more performant.
Yeah.
They because the Wi-Fi ones have to share the radio with the Bluetooth. You will usually only pick up about half as many devices. So if you can, get an Ethernet one in place instead of a Wi-Fi one, that's definitely a much better situation. I've been talking with Jesse about how to kind of group the advertisements together a little bit better. So maybe in the future, the Wi-Fi performance will improve. But in the meantime, still highly recommend doing Ethernet-based one if you can.
I was trying to pick up my Ethernet-based one I had laying somewhere, but I can't find it.
there's an Ethernet-based one from M5 Stack too.
No, it's, what's your favorite brand again, Nick? The
The
Olimex.
Olimix, yeah, they make really good
Right.
ones.
It's
M5,
power over Ethernet too, so it's really cool.
yeah, M5 actually has a PoE one, and it has if you take apart, the actual case, there's a antenna connector that you can put an external antenna in it. So if you buy the M5 one, and it works really well because it comes with a case. You just got to go buy a cheap, $2 antenna to connect up to it to get the better range on it.
Cool.
Yeah, I found it. Let me just. This one.
Yep, that's it.
That's a cool one.
And then the Atom Light is the one that we our preferred one, which I don't know. We have so many. The Atom, yeah, this is the Atom Light, just the gray one. Which, okay, can't find it. Just for people that are like, I want to see how it looks. The website that's being shown on the screen. This is it. So, yeah, you can easily click on the ones that we just discussed, M5 Stack and Olimex. They are linked here, so you can easily find them. For the Olimex, because it doesn't come with a case, there's also a case you can 3D print yourself. So, very nice. You don't need to know any programming or anything. You just install through the browser with a cable, you're good to go.
Yeah, that's just so awesome that you can just flash them through the browser.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Super helpful.
All right. Frank, I'm going to show your screen again.
Yeah, sure. Let's talk about new integrations that are not there. So even though we don't have new integrations, this release does have a couple of feature integrations, as we call them. So they're more linking to existing ones to improve findability. So there's one for OneWire, Icera, HomeSeer is there for Z-Wave now, Quadrafire, and Pheromone Casting, which are both using IntelliFire integrations. So those are at least there for findability. Also, 4 integrations that move to the UI this release, which I absolutely love seeing, and I hope to see it a little bit more, actually, personally. The EDL 21, Frontier Silicon, Nextcloud, and OB High. I have no idea what OB High does, but still.
Mm-hmm.
Right, so that's everything, and besides that, there's the breaking changes, which you should definitely always check before upgrading. There's quite a big list this release, but most of them are previously known deprecations or things that should have already threw up an issue in your repairs dashboard already in Home Assistant. So it should not be a surprise for all of them. OpenAI is in there, by the way, Paul, as there was something with now a cheaper API.
Yeah,
I
so
believe.
OpenAI released ChatGPT, which is GPT 3.5 as an API. It has a slightly different API because it's chat-based and not prompt-based. So it has like many different prompts, basically a chat. And so because the API changed, I've also updated the integration to actually work with the new API. Previously, we kind of mimicked a chat transcript and asked GPT to finish it. Now with GPT 3.5, it actually has these messages being passed in as individual messages, preventing also hijacking prompt injection. So that's nice. We are, but yeah, it was a breaking change. So your old prompts, like your old selected model is like reset to 3.5, GPT 3.5, which is also cheaper. So the GPT 3.5 compared to GPT 3 is 90% cheaper, so a tenth of the price. So that's nice. We also updated the prompt because we used to provide an areas variable, but that didn't work anymore because there's a new areas template function. So we decided one time to make a breaking change and say, hey, you have to use the areas that's provided by Home Assistant.
Yep. All right. Yeah. that's about it, I guess. Oh, Z-Wave would be a good one to highlight. Maybe it's there often, but if you run a Z-Wave network, be sure to update the Docker container add-on you're using.
Well, yeah,
Before upgrading, in case you're running the Home Assistant core add-on, the official add-on, that will be taken care of for you. So that's easy.
so yeah, if you don't know what this is about, use Z-Wave, then use the automatic installation, which we automatically will keep up to date.
Yeah. And if you upgrade and forget about this, then it will just show up in the device panel like, hey, there's something wrong, and then we'll upgrade at that point.
I see some of the comments about like people saying that their custom cards broke. Please update all your custom cards. We have worked during the beta with a lot of the custom card authors. We found the ones that were broken, and we've all like helped together to fix them. So basically, all big ones are fixed.
And if not, please report it to the custom card author so they can fix it.
Yeah. Just jumping in right into the next question, is it planned to ship Home Assistant Yellow from the EU in the near future? We actually are. So we have a little bit of issues with Home Assistant Yellow in providing enough stock because we rely on the Raspberry Pi CM4, which is not currently available. We expect more availability in Q3, so that will be after the summer. But we have a distributor in Europe already right now, Raspberry Pi DK, also linked from our Yellow website. They still have Home Assistant kit in stock. Home Assistant Yellow kits in stock that you can buy. But the Home Assistant Yellow standards that they had with the CM4 included, I think have already all sold out. But that's just how CM4s go right now. Sadly.
All right, one thing left, which is farewell to the following. We have to say goodbye to Dark Sky. After many years of deprecation, I think it has been deprecated for 2 or 3 years or something. Long time, at least.
Yeah, well, it's been good to know that we deprecated it not because we wanted it gone, because it is actually one of the best weather services out there, but they got acquired by a certain fruit company. This fruit company has rolled the Dark Sky API, is still available, but now as like the Apple Weather API for if you need to have like a Apple developer account for which you pay like $100 a year. So it's no longer really accessible to Home Assistant users. So interesting fact, they turned off the Dark Sky API like last Monday or something. And since then, the weather app on iOS has been absolutely shitty and slow. So I think there was something still relying on the API, it feels like. Yeah.
It was definitely a good confirmation that the API was gone. Yeah. And last but not least, Magic C has been removed because they're no longer providing API keys to users, and the integration was actually broken as well. So it felt like a bit of weird effort to put in at a point almost not used and no.
And that's why it's nice to not have to rely on the cloud, where they keep your access hostage. Right?
Yep.
Yeah.
So
that's it.
That was it. That's it for this beautiful release, I must say. This beautiful Easter release.
Yes.
Nice and clean image. Beautiful.
Yeah. Just like the UI right now. Neat and clean. I love it.
Yeah. All right. So, for the people that missed the start of the stream, I already announced it, and maybe I should put up a banner, but April 27, we are going to host Year of the Voice Chapter 2. It's going to be super cool. We have a lot of cool stuff. You're definitely going to like it. However, that's not everything. We're also going to have a cool announcements around Home Assistant Operating System and Supervisor. Both are getting a really big update that is going to be with some frequent requested features included. And in case you missed it, Android has launched multi-service support last week.
Oh,
so
absolutely beautiful.
It's been a release. It's going to be a release marathon this month. I mean, so I hope that I think every week we'll probably have something really cool to announce.
It's It's going to be a busy month.
Yes, no, that too. Yeah, I'm speaking at there's a Thread member meeting in Philadelphia, and I'm heading there to like
To Philly. Cool.
yeah.
Well, that's close by. Pretty
Yeah.
close by. All right. Anything new?
I made a Mario clock. Like I know made is a big word because I just follow the tutorial, but I'm gonna so there's these panels you have. It's like 64 by 64 pixels, so it's like 2048 pixels or something. And if you look on the back, it has just like it looks very technical. However, it's really I'm gonna live assemble this clock. So like if I can do it live on this video, you can do it too. There's this device that you can buy. It's called the ESP32 Trinity. It's a ready-made board. What is so cool about it? It has the plug, so you can just plug it. The only thing I did already before the stream is that I screwed this cable that came with my screen. I already connected the two terminals just so that like I didn't have to do that fumble. So I'm just gonna click it in. Look at this.
This is a live demo. I love it.
This is it. So you can install this through the browser, the software on it. I already did that just because I didn't want to like. I have a video. I can show the video, but I'm gonna now plug this cable in. Like, there's a power here. All right. Now I have an adapter for 5 volts, and this one is 10 amps, but like you can use 4 amps. I'm gonna plug it in. There's a cable connector. You cannot even really see it.
Yeah, we can.
Plugging it in. All right.
Upside down.
Upside down.
Connecting to the Wi-Fi. Boom. Mario.
Oh, wow. Oh, that's
Isn't that
cool,
cool?
actually.
Cool.
Yeah.
And so every minute it's going to jump. So I'm gonna just keep talking like sitting in front of my face until it like hits the minute. And so this is all open source software. It's made by I had prepared his name 1 second.
Oh,
It was-
Yeah,
yeah.
it jumped.
It jumped, yeah.
Did
Well,
you
it-
miss it? So wish
Yeah, I
another
missed
minute.
it myself.
Wait another
I'm
minute.
actually synchronized with a time server, and it's made by Jonathan Barboza, of course, powered by ESP Web Tools and Improv. So the installation is really smooth. I'm gonna share the installation because, well, this is what I always like. I like, right? It's like, oh, the installation is good. Let me just. He made a small video. I'm gonna. This is his clockwise.page. This is where he sources. He actually has multiple clocks. Pac-Man is one of them as well. But yeah, the way you do it is that you select the clock you want. You click flash. This is if you have the ESP32 connected. You click on install. He's actually skipping some time in the recording right now, just so that also this video is a bit longer. But yeah, when installation is done, it wraps up the installation, scans for your Wi-Fi networks. You get a drop down, which Wi-Fi network do you want to configure? You enter your Wi-Fi password. Your new clock will connect to the internet, synchronize the time through the NTP server. You click on visit device. Boom, you're done. You can change your time zone on the right or say what kind of format you want to bring.
It's so cool to see other projects using ESP Web Tools and Improv and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
No, definitely. This one has just been, I see it now popping up everywhere. I feel like we had some critical mass. The creator of this clock, the Improv implementation he made for the Arduino framework, he actually made a standalone sample, so it will be easier to also integrate with other projects. So, because we see a lot of adoption of ESP Web Tools, Improv not so much, but that second step of configuring the Wi-Fi and being immediately right directly to go is great. Some people are saying I want links. I'm gonna, what? I'm gonna post a link right now. This is a link to a post of mine on Mastodon, and this post contains all the different things that I used to build it. So it has the link to the ESP32 Trinity, the adapter, and the panel.
Cool.
Yeah. There was actually, I don't know, like I don't want to like fill up the rest of the time. But there was another really cool ESP32 project that kind of did the rounds in the last month. Mainly, it is actually a custom component that exists for a longer time, but Blackadder wrote up a tutorial for this device. I know you guys
Yeah, I have that one
Oh.
too. Frank doesn't, because Frank has a very expensive device that does exactly the same.
This is
I got
a
it on
and
that
it's
trick.
not
Yes.
Ulanzi desktop clock, the TC001. It's on AliExpress. It's like $40. It has like this one I literally just unboxed it. I don't have it installed right now, but it can run ESP Home. There's an ESP Home YAML configuration and then I'm just gonna turn on. It has RGB matrix, so you can have messages on. You can have it on your desk. It has a couple of buttons. I'm gonna just quickly show the cool demo of the matrix.
Cool.
But yeah, it
Yeah,
has.
if you have ESP Home on it, you will get some services so you can show messages on it with different icons, and it can even play music and sounds and the Nokia
Yeah.
tune and stuff like that.
The Nokia tune. That's an
Yeah.
important fact.
No, you know the Nokia. You had
Yeah.
all these digits and stuff to make
Yeah.
tunes. You can do that with that thing.
Yeah. So the custom integration was made by Lutger, and he's been like working on it for like a year on like getting it all done. But yeah, since Blackadder showed like how easy it is, because literally there's the USB-C cable, you connect it to your device running ESP Home, copy paste the YAML, and you're good to go.
Yeah, I have it installed. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. If people want interested to a link to that, check out the latest newsletter, because that's where I also mentioned it. Let me see where's the banner for the newsletter? Oh yeah, there you go. If you haven't heard about our newsletter just yet, you're just tuning in. Building.open-home.io every month around the 20th. We will send out an update with like cool community projects and non-home assistant release things that are kind of happening in the world of like what we call the open home, right? Where we want to focus on like privacy, choice, and durability.
That's cool.
Right. What else is new?
Yeah, I have the M5 stack, which we just showed. Like I got this little fella here, which was my first M5 stack I bought. So I was really impressed about the size and build quality and how it looked and felt. And
Also,
You know,
have
one
that
of the
stamp.
things
That's also like really cool. It's even smaller.
What they do with the M5 stack, so there's on the bottom, there's these black pins that allow to fit some headers, and they actually make these extension boards. And so last year we actually featured this one. So this is the M5 stack here, and this is a media player. So you can actually have a speaker out, or it comes also with a small speaker you can plug in. And then we have ESP Home for it, right? So ESP Home has a media player. We have a web-based installer for this device, and so it will get picked up by Home Assistant automatically, and you have a small speaker for anywhere at your house.
that's
So,
really
yeah,
cool.
I've been enjoying their gear a lot.
Yeah. Furthermore, I was looking at a Matrix, but like the
A
cheap
bit more
one.
manual, yeah.
The bit more manual. Now I want to like play and test with WLED and Matrix and with Home Assistant, like getting more improvements in there. So I got one of these to test with. So kind of interesting to see, because WLED is getting more support for matrices too, which is
Yeah.
kind of nice.
Is it already released or it's still in the beta or nightly?
I think it's still beta, actually. To be honest, I haven't followed it last week, but generally the stuff on WLED tends to stay beta a long time, which I think is not a bad thing. But yeah.
Yeah.
And last but not least, I got one of those doorbells. I replaced my good old-fashioned homemade ESP Home doorbell tutorial I once did with an actual video doorbell from Riolingo, and I was pretty impressed, actually.
Yeah?
To be honest, yeah.
This is local, right?
Yes, it is local. it does RTSP, and we have an integration for it now, which had a lot of updates this release again. Yeah, that's great. It just works, just local. You can even like disconnect it from the internet, and it will just work, which is pretty darn awesome.
So
So
how
I'm happy with them.
how does it work? Like do you get events? Do you get like you can send notification to your phone saying, "Hey,
Yeah,
nice."
yeah. Even with Home Assistant itself, so that's cool. No, it just works, and as I wished for, actually. So, and I have nothing bad to say about it.
Video about it, right? Like one of our creators.
Yeah, multiple.
Oh yeah, Bearded Thinker. He's right there in the chat.
Yeah, Bearded Thinker did one, and whoever else. I think Lewis did one the other day.
Yeah.
A Smart Home Junkie did one, so they've all been doing it. But I got one too, and I'm not disappointed, to be honest.
Nice.
Yeah.
I'm glad.
I still use.
Oh yeah.
I'm still using my old doorbell, by the way, because one of the downsides of this thing is it cannot ring the actual old chime. So I kept my old module there, and Home Assistant can now ring the chime still.
Nice.
So if somebody pushes the doorbell, the Rio Link, Home Assistant will trigger the actual chime using the old relay.
Oh, that's awesome.
No.
So what's so with the Rio Link, I'm just happy that there's finally a company doing this, right? Like I feel like for a long time there was like Doorbird or something that was super expensive. And now there's, a vendor that's like in this space.
Yeah, I believe, Nick, you have, Doorbird.
I have a Doorbird, and then I also have on the other door, I have a Unify Protect doorbell. So I'm pretty happy with both of them. But the Unify one is not loud enough. I actually have one. I have a family member who is very hard of hearing, and I built them some old-fashioned speakers hooked up to some ESP home devices. So when you press the button on the Unify Protect, it makes it's a cacophony of loudness in the house. She never misses the doorbell anymore. So
That's cool.
Nice. Yeah. Next step is just use light, right? That's just the strobe effect.
Oh, there's strobe lights on it too. Yeah, she's pretty deaf, so.
The identify and flash thingies that a lot of light support is pretty helpful with that. Like you can turn on light with flash set to true how many lights, which will just give a blink effect, which is kind of nice actually to use for signaling and notifications. I sometimes use it. Even with headphones on, just behind my desk, right? So it's easy to miss it, especially with noise cancellation. It's kind of nice to have something flashing in your face, like somebody's at the door.
Right. Yeah, you can have your thing like light up a message. You use the what's yours called, Frank?
The LaMetric.
Oh yeah, the LaMetric.
Yeah, well, that's 5 times the price, so with less features probably, and closed source.
Right. I mean, ESP Home. That's just. I think it's ESP32, so you should be able to run a Bluetooth proxy on it too.
Cool.
Great.
All right.
Well, we're getting to the end of the stream. Last 5 minutes. I just want to thank again everybody that contributed to this release of Home Assistant. You all are awesome. How many 80 people had contributed? I haven't looked at the number of PRs. I think
1,060 or 80, over 1,000. It's insane.
That's wild, right? Because that just means that more than 30 contributions a day are like being accepted.
Yes. And this is just core. This is not even counting front-end changes or documentation or wherever else.
Right.
Android apps, iOS apps. We have so many places.
Supervisor, OS.
Yeah, tons of places. So just core alone is over 1,000.
Really cool. If you want to support the Home Assistant project, please subscribe to Home Assistant Cloud by Nabukasa. It's what pays my salary, Frank's salary, Bram's salary. And it helps fund us to hire developers to help manage the Home Assistant project, build out its features, manage contributions, and just not only Home Assistant, it also funds development of Z-Wave.js, of ZHA, the ZigPie, the Zigbee stack that we use. Matter is funded by Nabu Casa. ESP Home is by Nabu Casa. So
ESP Web Tools,
ESP Web Tools as well. Yeah. So we
Improv.
build out a lot of tooling for a lot that anyone can just use, all open source. And we would like to keep doing that. So if you like what we're doing, subscribe to Home Assistant Cloud by Nabu Casa.
Thank you. Definitely.
Yeah.
That's a wrap, I would say.
Yeah, I think so. Any final words?
Happy Easter.
Oh, yes.
I'm going to be painting some eggs this weekend.
Yeah.
I'm going to send the kids for looking.
The best Home Assistant painted egg.
The best Home Assistant painted egg. Who's going to share that one on social? Oh, that would be nice. Who's going to paint a Home Assistant egg?
Yeah, and don't use Midjourney or other AI.
No, make it. It must be painted for real.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. All right.
All right, everybody. Ciao.
Happy Easter.